called it Eldoria, not for any grand celestial reason, but for the town it once served, a town now swallowed by the forest, much like the observatory itself was swallowed by rumor and dread. For decades, it stood abandoned, a skeletal sentinel pointing its decaying dome towards the indifferent cosmos. Tales whispered of its former inhabitants, driven mad by what they saw or what saw them. But for Liam, Chloe, Ben, and Sarah, Eldoria was just another forgotten monument, ripe for rediscovery, and more importantly, ripe for views. The air grew heavy as they ventured deeper. A damp, earthy smell mingled with something else, metallic, almost like old blood or ozone. Sarah, ever the researcher, recounted the observatory's history. Founded by an eccentric astronomer, Dr. Alastair Finch, who claimed to be receiving signals from beyond known space. His work was dismissed as delusion. His eventual disappearance, a suicide covered up by a panicked local government. Liam scoffed, his flashlight beam dancing through the trees, eager for the perfect money shot of the decrepit structure. The perimeter fence was a joke, more a suggestion than a barrier. Rust-eaten wire, a gate that practically disintegrated at Ben's touch. The ease of entry felt less like good luck and more like an invitation. An open wound in the fabric of the woods. Chloe, filming everything, felt a prickle of unease. Her lens picked up something strange. Odd symbols carved into the bark of ancient trees just past the gate, glowing faintly in the flashlight beam, almost like hieroglyphs from a culture that never existed on Earth. Then Eldoria emerged from the gloom. Not just a building, but a presence. A hulking, concrete cyclops staring blindly at the sky. The dome, once a marvel of engineering, was now a mangled crown, skeletal ribs of metal reaching for nothing. A profound silence hung in the air, deeper than any forest quiet, as if the very sound had been absorbed by the ancient stone. It felt less like an abandoned building and more like a waiting predator. Sarah's earlier excitement was replaced by a shiver. The heavy, reinforced doors groaned inward, revealing a cavernous lobby. Dust motes danced like tiny, desperate spirits in their flashlight beams. The air inside was still, cold, and utterly dead. Faded, archaic star charts adorned the walls, depicting constellations unlike any known to astronomers. Swirls of impossible light, geometric patterns that seemed to shift if you looked too long. In the center, a massive, circular reception desk dominated the space, looking less like furniture and more like a sacrificial altar. An oppressive sense of being watched settled upon them, a feeling that intensified with every creak of the floorboards. Liam, ever the thrill-seeker, pushed them onward. Let's check the basement. That's where all the good stuff is. He grinned, a nervous edge to his voice. A narrow, spiraling staircase descended into an abyss of darkness. As they walked down, the temperature dropped sharply, and the silence deepened, becoming a physical pressure against their ears. The concrete walls grew slick with moisture, and grotesque, phosphorescent moss clung to the crevices, pulsing faintly with a sickly green light. The air grew thick with a metallic tang, almost like electricity. At the bottom, they found it, Dr. Finch's private sanctum, a warped vision of a research lab. Blackboards covered in equations that seemed to defy geometry, star charts depicting universes entirely alien, books with titles like Whispers from the Void and The Language of the Deep. In the center, shrouded under a thick canvas, stood a colossal, indescribable machine, humming faintly even after all these years. Sarah carefully picked up a tattered journal from a desk. Finch's last entry read, "It listens, it sees, and now it shows me myself." The humming from the shrouded machine intensified, a low thrum that vibrated in their bones. As Sarah read Finch's chilling words, Ben, who had wandered a few feet away, suddenly froze. His jovial mask shattered. He stumbled backward, whispering Chloe's name, his eyes wide with a fear that wasn't for the abandoned building, but for something deeply personal. A flicker in his peripheral vision, a shadow that moved too fast, too unnaturally, coalesced into a figure of pure dread only he could truly see. The machine pulsed, its hum now a resonant drone, burrowing into their minds. Suddenly, a guttural shriek tore through the silence, not from any of them, but from the very air itself. The canvas covering the machine was violently ripped away, revealing Dr. Finch's monstrous creation. It was an arcane, impossible device, a labyrinth of twisted brass, impossibly glowing crystals, and a central obsidian sphere that seemed to drink the light. From its surface, shadowy tendrils erupted, not physical, but psychic, wrapping around Sarah. She stiffened, a silent scream frozen on her face, her eyes fixed on something only she could perceive, a vision of her greatest academic failure, amplified into a crushing, existential terror. Liam tried to grab Sarah, but she was rigid, locked in a waking nightmare. He shouted her name, his voice swallowed by the intensifying hum of the machine, now a chorus of disembodied whispers echoing his deepest insecurities. He saw them too, brief, fleeting glimpses of his own failures, his rival's sneering face, the humiliating metrics of a dying channel, all projected onto the walls of the lab. The cosmic entity was no ghost, no slasher. It was a tormentor of the mind, a predator that feasted on consciousness, turning their inner demons into inescapable realities. They weren't being hunted by a monster. They were the monster. The whispers intensified, twisting perception. Ben, screaming about the things crawling inside him, mistook his own reflection in a broken mirror for his greatest fear, a grotesque, parasitic creature he'd read about in a forgotten book. In a desperate act of self-preservation against this phantom foe, he seized a jagged piece of rusty metal and with a horrifying, primal roar, began to savagely attack himself. He wasn't being stabbed. He was doing the stabbing, convinced he was eradicating an infestation. The first crimson stains blossomed on his jacket, a brutal, self-inflicted slaughter. Chloe watched, her camera tumbling from numb fingers, capturing the sickening reality of Ben's self-destruction. Her mind, already fragile, snapped. entity turned its gaze on her, twisting her fear of being utterly alone, of being forgotten, into a suffocating presence. She saw her friends vanish, one by one, into the encroaching shadows. The machine pulsed, its light now a blinding white, and she felt phantom hands pulling at her, dragging her into a desolate void, a screaming silence where only her own forgotten existence mattered. Liam, clutching a catatonic Sarah, fought back against the invading thoughts, but it was a losing battle. He saw it all then. The cosmic entity wasn't a malicious demon, but an indifferent, unfathomable intellect that simply observed. It showed him the true scale of the universe, the infinite void, and humanity's utter, laughable insignificance within it. His greatest fear wasn't failure or death, but cosmic irrelevance. He wasn't being hurt, he was being shown. The sheer, crushing weight of that truth broke him. He fell to his knees, utterly defeated, his mind unraveling like a tattered tapestry. The silence returned, but it was a heavier, more profound silence than before. Ben lay broken, a monument to self-inflicted terror. Sarah was a vacant shell. Chloe was gone. Perhaps her fear of being forgotten had been granted, erasing her from this plane. Liam lay amidst the wreckage, his eyes open, vacant, a faint, unsettling smile playing on his lips, as if he'd found a terrible peace in the ultimate horror of cosmic indifference. The camera, still recording, captured the final, faint whisper from the machine, a sound that wasn't a language, but a feeling, the cold, vast, eternal awareness of the void.